With the Planet Fitness Black Card, you don't just get a great workout, you get a great perk out because your membership is packed with perks. For $1 down and $24.99 a month, you'll get perks like access to any of our 2,400 clean and spacious locations. Bring a friend anytime and both work out with tons of equipment that'll give you that big fitness energy. Relax in the Black Card spa and more. Work out and perk out with the PF Black Card. Join for just $1 down and $24.99 a month.
Join the judgment-free zone today. Deal ends Thursday, August 10th.
See Home Club for details.
Good morrow, spectators, and happy belated Dia de los Muertos. The spooky season might be over for most of you, but that doesn't mean the deadly fun is over here at Spectales, does it, Jesus?
I'm not even going to talk about the R, but let's just move on from that. There's not enough spookiness for 1 month, not enough pumpkin spice lattes. We have to keep the spooky train rolling. That's what we do. We love that genre. And I mean, what more than to continue into November, right?
Exactly. You know, Christmas has been infringing on the horror season way too much. We are taking back the month of November, back from Christmas, and extending Horror-tober.
Horror-tober. You know what? Let's trademark that, guys. Come on. I mean, that is spectacular, spooktacular. You see what I did there, Jake? That's the first time anybody's ever said that. So, yes, I agree. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Now, if you are a first-time listener, thanks for checking us out. Spectales is a comic book podcast that has collectors and creators. What's your grail tale? Each week, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
This week, Jesus and I were lucky enough to snag an interview with one of the most elusive creatures in the world, a comic book Yeti.
That's right. Byron O'Neal, the media editor and podcast host for the comic review site Comic Book Yeti, joins us to talk about what it's like being a Yeti and how comics have made a major impact on his life.
Oh, man. Sorry, dude. I'm not feeling that well.
Are you all right, man? What's wrong with you? You okay?
Oh, I don't. Seriously, man. After I got bit by this undead looking dude in a cemetery. He was yelling something about "They're coming for you, Barbara," and I haven't been feeling that well ever since.
Dude, that sounds pretty serious, man. Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe you should get that looked at.
It's probably nothing. Let's just kick off this intro before I pass out. So if you're ever hanging in a cemetery in the state of Nebraska, avoid the brains. This is episode 65.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. All right, we'll get one more.
Spectales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Welcome back to another wild and crazy episode of Spectales. This week, we are excited to be joined by the media editor for one of our very favorite comic book websites, the Comic Book Yeti. He also hosts the Comic Book Yeti podcast, The Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm speaking of none other than the mythical creature himself, Byron O'Neal. Byron, thank you for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. You guys are far too generous. That was a great intro. I need to take notes myself here.
Yeah, just like Jake said, the Yeti has been growing just like the real Yeti that we all know and love. But this one is a comic book focus. And like Jake mentioned, we really enjoy the Comic Book Yeti. So we're glad to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Byron, would you mind telling us a little bit about how'd you get over to the Yeti? How did you become a Yeti yourself?
Yeah, sure. It was a bit of a weird journey. So I guess to step back, I've kind of been in comic books, as a lot of people have, got into it as a kid. West Coast Avengers, picking that up at the local gas station, when I was like 6. So Started there in high school. My first job, aside from like mowing lawns, my first job where I ever paid taxes, I worked in a comic book shop, and that transitioned to 2 other comic book shops. And I always say, hopefully I wasn't the death knell of those comic book shops, because, one closed, I went to another closed, went to another. So hopefully I wasn't the thread to make it all bad. Right. But I had, in like 2020, I had some like health stuff going on for like 5 years. And I had this episode, for lack of a better way of putting it, and didn't end up in the hospital, but got to a point where I could like barely walk. Like
wow.
Needed assistance. Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. And we did some testing and stuff, and found out that I have pretty significant autoimmune disease. If you're familiar with lupus.
Yes.
So yeah, having to kind of relearn, get my strength back. I got down to like 128 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But the thing that kept me going was that at night I could step into a separate world. So every night I would read comics before going to bed. And this was just at least something that on that trajectory of like clawing my way back, I could do. And it provided at least some release, a way to step away from everything I was going through. And so I started writing reviews. I just, built my own site, started doing that. Matt, the Yeti, the head Yeti, had put out a post like, hey, we're looking for, people to do reviews. I was like, okay, cool. I'll give this a shot. And, got on Twitter, the whole bit. And long story short, that's really how it started. And it's grown. I am not the best reviewer.
Okay.
I'm actually quite bad at it. And bless our hearts, Wells and Krista, who were kind of the editors at that time, were very kind and like holding my hand and be like, hey, come on, you'll be all right, But that's sort of how I transitioned into doing interviews. I was like, oh, I really like this. This is so much fun because I can just focus on the positivity and I can interact with people. And that was so much better than trying to come up with, I'm not going to say negative, right? But I just hate to be critical.
So I was going to ask, so it was the thing you had the most difficulty was the critiquing, finding the things that maybe make this maybe a little bit better than that. And you were having trouble maybe saying anything you would even perceive as negative about something else. Yeah.
And I came from a background. So for like a decade, I was a professional photographer. One of the things that I did was I had a partner. We taught landscape photography workshops in like national parks, and had this great partnership where Nick was the intro guy. So you were learning your camera, trying to take it off of auto mode, that sort of thing. That was Nick's realm. My realm was like the artistic eye of things. And so I was very used to offering critique there. Okay. But for whatever reason, it didn't translate to me enjoying doing that with comic books. And luckily, Matt was really, really kind and just allowed me to kind of do whatever I want. And I always tell him, dude, why the hell did you do that? You're crazy. Like, why did you give me so much leeway? Please don't do that with anybody else, But yeah, that's how I found myself as part of the Yeti crew, if you will.
I just wanted to touch on that because there's been some discourse on a lot of stuff in comic books. And as you well know, that there's a lot of polarizing stuff, right? Yeah. In comic books, good, bad, even the adaptations, whether they're TV, film, what have you. And my question is, and I guess like for you as well, that you had trouble with it or you didn't like doing it, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's a lane where you can just say, it's just not for me. And it's not being, and I think we need to lean into that more as comic people, because there's so many different comic books. And I struggle with it too. As Jake, man, I like a lot of stuff. I have a wide breadth of stuff that I like. But some stuff is just, and I'll tell him, I don't know, I didn't really get into this one, or I stopped reading it and, after the first arc, because it just didn't catch my attention. And it's not for me. And that's okay. That doesn't mean it's not good or bad. It's just not for me. It could be And there's books that have a lot of big sales numbers, right? Big names attached to them, but they're just not for me, and that's okay too.
Oh, for sure. I'll like break my rule and like create myself as the total conundrum out there, and just say the like, for instance, the Keanu Reeves book I hate.
But that's good though. Now. You know where the line is. You know where your line is. And I have that one book example as well from the last year and a half or something. Because like Jesus, I like everything. However, Ed Piscar's Red Room, and I'm a horror guy. I like horror comics. I get into those. I almost couldn't finish that first book because it was so graphic and so unsettling for me, where I've talked to people and I was like, listen, I'm glad you like that. That's not for me, to use Jesus's line. So but I'm not going to be critical, because the thing is that art is good and that storyline is interesting. Like, I was intrigued when, to get into the books, but man, that first one was just like, I think I gotta look for something else. I need a palate cleanse, which is why I don't know. We don't really talk negative on this show ever, Jesus. Have we ever said anything we don't like? That's the first one.
That's the first one you said, just to let everybody know. Jake said it, not me. Send all your hate mail to Jake at Spectales Podcast.
Yeah, you can blame me, because I started.
It's true. Byron, you're bringing out the negativity on this show. We're such a positive show, and somehow you've managed to bring the negativity out. I'm just joking. You're fine.
And to what Jake was saying real quick too, I found myself, I think this is what I realized too, with comic books and with movies. I'm watching a movie when I start to see if it's like a great movie or an all-time classic, throwing this out there because I feel this is how it is. And then once it starts getting into like, okay, this is either too easy for me to decipher, or that was real campy. At that point, my brain switches and now it's just fun. Oh, this is a fun movie, right? It's not meant to be a Academy winner or awards or, one of the best in its genre. It's just a fun movie, right? Same thing with comic books. Like, oh, this isn't like like a Dark Knight or Saga or whatever. It's just meant to be a fun comic book. Like, I think I told you that too, Jake, with the Hulk, with the Donny Cates Hulk, when it was Starship Hulk. Like, that's just comic books, right? Like, that's not too serious. It's just what comic books can allow you to do with these crazy characters. So yeah, I think we're at an epiphany, guys. Thank you guys for allowing me to share this through you guys.
Of course. I'm here for you.
Well, let's get into some recent reads. Let's get into something that we've recently read or picked up, which means we're moving into our first segment.
Recent pickups.
Our recent pickups segment. Hey, Zeus, would you mind leading it off?
Yeah, man, I don't mind at all. Thank you for asking very politely. So I've talked a lot about my grading adventures with certain companies, including CGC and CBCS. And as we all know, as collectors, these companies do leave a lot to be desired. So I don't want to say recently, I submitted a long time ago, over a year to be in fact, some comic books to be graded by one of the companies, and I recently received them. And I wanted to talk about one book specifically because there's a lot of hype around it. And also, to talk to the community. It's Giant Size Chillers #1, featuring The Curse of Dracula, the first appearance of Lilith, the daughter of Dracula. I got it back. It's a square bound book, so it's really hard to get in high grade. This came back at a 7.5 raw grade. And, I don't really have too much attachment to, I think it's a cool cover.
Did that come with your Tomb of Dracula collection?
Yes, it did come with my Tomb of Dracula collection, which my Tomb of Dracula is still sitting at CGC as well over a year ago. So I'm not going to get into that one. Now, that one I have more connection to. I don't think I'm going to sell that one. So what I wanted to talk about this one is I just got it back. Really cool cover. And I put it for sale. And I put it for an amount that I felt was, I don't want to say it was high, but I want to say it's kind of what the market was doing. And it literally sold like right away. And I was questioning myself, like, wait a second, did I put it too low? Did I? So this book is sold that I'm holding here. I'm holding it for you guys. It's sold. I have to ship it out tomorrow, so you guys get to see it. I just wanted to highlight it that it's a hot book because it's Dracula's Daughter. There's some spec around it, but it's also a cool book, and also just to highlight some of the issues that we have as trying to help the hobby pay for itself.
The bottleneck that is the grading system.
Yep, it took me over a year to get this book back. Luckily at this book, I got it back when it's hot, but I have a short box full of books Moon Knight books that I missed, and I'm just trying to hold on. Shang-Chi that I missed, I'm just trying to hold on because it just took so long for them to come back. But that's the bottleneck, like Jake said.
So is that a Gene Colan cover?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
I love Gene Colan.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a gorgeous book, and that's honestly that's a great grade too for a square bound book. Those things from that
Bronze
time
Age,
period.
yeah, Bronze Age square bound book, really cool.
God, and
not a lot of people know about this book.
The colors are so the red and the yellow and it all pops so well.
I didn't know about that book, and I'm a huge Colan fan, so I love that run of Tomb of Dracula. And
so what happened is they did this one first, and then it became Giant Size Dracula, right? Or Giant Size Tomb of Dracula or something. So this is the only Giant Size Chillers, with that title.
Very neat.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Byron, what have you recently picked up or read?
Well, most of what I read actually are trades. I really, really enjoy collected editions.
Of course.
I read probably on average 2.5 issues worth of material a night. So the last week was Aerosmith Behind Enemy Lines, which was fantastic. Absolutely love that book. It's really good. Sea Serpent's Air, which I did an interview recently, which is not out yet, but that's a new Middle Ages. No, I'm not going to say YA, definitely middle grade, kind of fantasy book. And it's really, really good. And The Bird King, which is a Dark Horse trade that came out. It's Daniel Friedman and Christian Crom Ortiz. And the artistic style there is just really, really, really cool. So he's a tattoo artist, and it's minimalistic. The backgrounds are just one color. There's not a whole lot of background work to it.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's very, very character driven. So I really, really enjoyed that.
Have you seen a shift towards collected stuff and trades from bigger names?
I think so. I was reading Liam Sharp posted something the other day. It was yesterday on Twitter, and just talking about how much I think he had on book 5, I want to say, maybe it's 6, but 4, 5, or 6 of Starhenge, was 8,000 units. I think that they moved at the single issue, and he's not, making much of a profit, and he's kind of reliant, he was saying, on the trade to really kind of take it over the top and make a profit on the book. And you're talking about somebody who's been in the industry for 35 years.
Yeah. That's, I do think that it's a different experience. And I've been doing both, where I will experience reading a book once a month. For example, most recently, A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance was a book that we were lucky enough to have Andre Lima Araujo, the artist of the series. We were able to have him on the show last fall. I think it was November or something like that, when that series was just kicking off. So I read the first issue and I enjoyed it. So then I just continued reading every issue over the course of it just finished in August. And I enjoyed the series so much that very last issue, I read it in my car right after I got out of my LCS. I got to my car, I took it out of the bag, and I read the issue, and I loved it, and I went home. Now, I've also had the experiences where I came into a series significantly later and picked it up, and then you read it all the way through. Now, I'll tell you right now, you get a different story. It is the same story, but your experience reading it, when you can literally, the cliffhanger lasts as long as it takes you to turn the page, instead of waiting an entire month for the next book, where listen, I mean, I liked A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. I read it in my car because I needed to know how it finished. If I'm reading that in a trade, it's not that much of a page turner. I don't mean any insult to the book. It's a great series, but it is not that much of a page turner where, you know, I'm up in bed late at night being like, I got to read one more. Like, it's just not doing that. And so the anticipation of the monthly still gets me, and I think it depends on the series. But how do you know which is which? That's how you never know.
But I guess so. Two questions that come to mind with that is, and we've talked about this a little bit as well, Jake. It's kind of, to me, like the 90s and 2000s business model of movies, right? They would maybe lose money or maybe just break even at the box office, and then they would make the back end DVD money.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing, and this is kind of the same thing where they're maybe hoping to break even on the single issues, and then the back end money is the trades, and that's where they actually make their money back or make more money, profit.
The trades are the syndication form of, it's like the syndication for television shows, right?
Yeah, but it's comic books, right?
Yeah.
But then the second thing about that is that's different is, while there is a little difference in watching something at a theater versus watching it at home whenever you want to, right? There's different artistic, what's the word I'm looking for? Like choices that they can make if they're gonna make a trade to begin with versus making single issues.
You mean if they know they're gonna go to trade?
Yeah, or if they were just gonna do a trade to begin with, like these
just
trades
a straight graphic novel.
Yes, exactly. Like Phenomena, for example, that we talked to Andre about. Like, there's different choices that they're making or that they can make depending on which one they're trying to go to, and I don't think that's the same for the DVD or the film. And I think we're in a transition time right now from comic book standpoint, where they're trying, and when I say we, I'm saying the creators are trying to figure out like how they're going to best take advantage of this so that they can continue to make, you know, great content going forward. And I hate saying content, but that's, I mean, you know, great comic books or graphic novels or whatever it is going forward.
It's a form of entertainment. So,
yeah.
So Byron, you said you've been reading more trades. Do you find yourself gravitating towards a graphic novel where it is intended to be read as a chunk like that? Or are you, by trades, you mean like you're just reading a series that's been collected into a trade?
A little bit of both. I'm a big horror fan, and Brian Level's Silk Hills, which, you know, was a graphic novel format, I thought was excellent. And I thought it worked really, really well in that format. But I don't hate, I read kind of whatever strikes my fancy. So it's, I'm fine either way. I mean, clearly the story's construction, if you're doing it just for a graphic novel, you can do things a little bit differently. I mean, the Sea Serpent's Heir that I just read, because it was put in that graphic novel format, was designed, they're able to put in breaks and do some different things. They went back and added a prologue.
Oh, cool.
Because they can. That recent interview, the Brothers Flick, where, you know, Ryan and Nick designed everything so that you could read for a, you know, YA audience, so that you could read a story at bedtime, you know, and so that works for that format. But I think either are great. I'm not against single issues either, and I found myself, it's fascinating because I will go on and on and on about, I'll go to my LCS and see 50 versions of the newest Venom, right? And I'm just, I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, this isn't for me. But at the same time, you know, I will buy things that are really cool. Like if there's a Peach Momoko, you know, cover, and I'm like, oh, that is gorgeous, then yeah, I'll buy it.
Sometimes the artwork demands you buy it, right? Like that's what it does. Well, hopefully I'm not cutting you off. I'm going to go with what my recent pickup is. So this last week we had, well, I guess this is 2 weeks ago from, you know, when this episode actually releases. However, couple weeks ago, we had Ryan Little on, and Ryan was taught. We were lucky enough to read his YA, graphic novel Make Believe. So, I really enjoyed it, and I tend to usually read darker stuff. But another book that I'd owned, I just had never read, and I finally sat down to read it, is Everyday Hero Machine Boy. So this is another YA book. This is a graphic novel. It was released by Image earlier this year. It's by Irma Navilla and Tri Wong. And I apologize if I butchered those names. But this is a beautiful story. God, the story is so joyful, but then it also makes you cry. And I swear to God, books that just like make you start, you're just like, son of, get out of here. You're making me cry my own tears. Nobody makes me cry my own tears. But it's the creativity involved in this. It somehow made me feel nostalgic about stories from my youth. And I can't even point to it, right? Like I want to say it's like Astro Boy or something, but it's not. It's its own thing. But it also has like, they also make like Iron Giant or all these emotions get brought up in you where there's something nostalgic about it. And yet it's brand new to you when you read it. But this is, I mean, it's all encompassing. It's all one book. I would love to read more of this character. I would love to read more in this world. Instantly a book I'm gonna like suggest my kids read because it's so well done and the art is playful and colorful and really, like I said, energetic.
Nice.
That's
Putting it up.
A Skybound, yes. Skybound Image.
Definitely Image. I don't. Skybound Comet though. Skybound Comet. So I don't know if that. I know Skybound, but I'd never heard of the comic or Comet imprint.
I think that's the YA imprint. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, clearly I don't read a lot of YA, but this one really this was great. So,
I happened to notice it on their website as I was doing a little research for Sea Serpent's Air, and that was the connection. So
I definitely recommend it to everybody out there who is into kind of it's like an action story, but it is got the coming of age feel as well. Again, it's a fun, easy, energetic read. Like when I read this, I feel uplifted. And awesome. It's a page turner. So highly recommend. And you can share with your kids if you have kids that can read.
I have to ask, is everybody like that? Cause I'm like Byron, I'm like Jake, where I'll read, Ice Cream Man or, some very dark stuff. I think, what was the other one that I liked? Something Falls. Gideon Falls. Gideon Falls.
Is it Gideon Falls? Oh, great. Yeah. No, I was thinking Gravity Falls. That's the Disney show.
No, I'll read something like that. And then I need a palate cleanser. So I'll go read, Venom from the multiple Venoms that are on the standard. Just something just to, cleanse my palate. Is that something you do as well, Byron, or no?
Yeah, I'm a super weird reader. So I can read 20 different things and just put it down, pick it up. So generally what I do is I have my to read pile and I will look and be like, okay, so what am I in the mood for today? Okay, it's been a rough day. I do need something light. I'm going to go for some kind of middle grade YA thing tonight. And I'll read however long I read in that and I'll put it down and maybe the next day I will pick that right back up. Usually if it's really good, I'll pick it right back up.
Yep.
But it may be different the next night and I'd be like, oh, I'm in a mood for a horror book tonight. So like last night I would swear I was going to go ahead because it's been sitting there on top, the collected Batman Black and White. I was like, I keep meaning to read this. I keep meaning to read. And for some reason, I'm reading something else. So.
Just getting pulled away
at that time.
Yep. I got to ask, Byron, in terms of your reading habits. So there's so much new content coming out on a weekly basis, and your job tends to require you be up to date on news stuff, right?
Sure.
So what if you wanted to sit down and read an old creepy magazine, or you wanted to sit down and do you get to read the old stuff? Can you work that into your pile?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Usually look for excuses to do that in one way or another. So we're going to set up the Ethan Sachs, that new Midnight Suns. And before I was going to interview Ethan, I went back and I was like, this is a perfect excuse to go back and step back into the early 90s and read some other Midnight Suns. So I ended up getting the trade for that.
Nice.
So yeah, I'll bounce around and stuff.
Oh, good.
And yeah, I've been meaning to get the old collected versions of Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night. I would love to dive back into those. It's so sad. It is the absolute cliche, right? Because my comic book collection now is several states away, sitting in my parents' attic. And I was joking around with my son. I was looking up prices of stuff, and I'm looking at some of these, the Jim X-Men run of things. Here's the first appearance of Gambit. And my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my goodness, that's worth some money now.
Yes.
I probably should have this in at least a climate controlled environment and not sitting in the attic at my parents' house.
Potentially. So, yeah. That's now
it'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll just go ahead and we'll say that, yes, that is a good idea, but they're your comics. You do you, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
If you do need a safer place to store them though, I got a place.
You know a place?
we know some people.
But I really want to get some of this stuff slabbed before too long,
Yeah. Basically decide when you want them slabbed and carve out like a year earlier so that you have enough time to have them slabbed by the time you want them.
Yeah, you get a little bit of an advantage. So let's do 11 months for you because you could just drop them off and then pick them up. So
that's true.
You get 11 months versus a year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it here first. So, breaking news, right? One of the things that I'd really like to do is get over to the CGC while I'm here and set up an interview with them, because I'd honestly just love to hear more about the process. And I'd really like to talk to somebody who's actually doing the grading.
Yep.
Just, hey, what's the coolest thing that came across your desk? What's the most expensive thing that came across your desk? Because I think it would be fascinating to get that perspective from somebody who that's just their job. To me, that's such a weird and interesting, quirky job. So.
Yeah, it's probably a very unique job if you're looking like as a whole. And I know for a fact, probably I want to say that there's special rules in place when high value books come across their desk. It's more of a consensus versus one grader grading it. So that because it's I mean, if you look at some of these high dollar books, like for example, what is it, Amazing Fantasy 15? Yeah, AF-15. The difference between half a grade, you're talking about thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. So it's incumbent upon them, and to be right on the community to give it the best, like not the best possible grade, but the best actual grade that it is. So a consensus is probably the best way to go about doing it. But yeah, I mean, it'd be great to go in there and just poke around and pick their brains. It'd be cool.
Even to see what their process is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I live here. I know what the weather's like. It's raining all the time. Before you go into work, do they have a room before you enter the back? Do they blow you off? Like, is it
one of those industrial
dryer
dryers for
like
cars?
An outbreak.
They make
that movie Outbreak
through?
When you go into a room, it's like shh.
Exactly. I know there was so much fear out there in the comics Twitterverse when we had the hurricane, coming through, and everybody's like, "Oh no, my books are in Florida. Is it still going to be there?"
Hope so.
Yeah. Oh, they were fine. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I was really, really sad because I haven't had a chance to get down to Scout either, whose headquarters is in Fort Myers, which unfortunately ended up being like ground zero for the hurricane.
Yeah.
So I was telling my wife, we're driving down there and inland to try to sort of escape because the news at the time said it was going to hit us pretty directly. And so we were in this really weird little town. Was it Ave Maria? So there's a Catholic university there, but hey, we rented a house just to kind of get out of the path of the storm. And then of course it hit farther south than was anticipated. And I was like, I'll just go by Scout on the way down. And my wife's like, there's a hurricane coming. Nobody's going to be in Scout.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, our good friend Mario Candelaria, who was the writer and creator of Kilchella, which is being published by Scout. Basically, the entire first print run of that issue number 1 just got destroyed. So they had to delay the release of it because he came on our show to promote it. And we were like, everybody go next week. You're going to pick the book up. And it never made it. It got destroyed. So, but luckily for him, they're of course going to do another print and they're going to make sure that it all gets taken care of and everybody's going to be able to read that book. So if you're out there and you're still wondering why it wasn't on your shelf, that is why. Hopefully by the time you hear this episode, it is on the shelf. I know that they're trying to get it out as soon as possible. So all that good news aside, let's move on to our next segment.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
That's right, the Grail Tale segment, where we are going to ask Byron here to tell us a tale about his comic book Grail. Byron, what do you got?
Okay, as I normally do, I have to kind of do my own thing.
Of course.
Known for it. Just ask Matt. And I feel like I'm really bringing the thundercloud to you guys. Like I promise positivity. All I'm doing is like bringing it down a little bit. Sorry about that.
No, not at all.
So let's get it fun. Okay. So back in the 90s, I'm working in a comic book shop, and my book of choice, like the one I absolutely love, was the Lobo miniseries. This was like an era-defining book for me. And I was this huge, still am a huge Simon Beasley fan. Just absolutely love his work. If there was a cover that came out in Doom Patrol, Judge Dredd, the 2000 AD stuff, Grendel, you name it, I didn't care. I just bought it because he did the cover. I loved his work that much. And so I really, really wanted to have an original piece of art. So my Grail is not a book. It's like a piece of his art.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So the podcast will never be able to see this, but like if you look over my shoulder, right there, right? So what that is issue 2 of the miniseries, page 9. So
nice.
So that was my Grail, and I'm lucky enough to actually be able to put that on my wall, and sits behind me for all my interviews. So
that's really cool. Do you mind going a little bit deeper into that page? Was there like a story behind how you obtained it, or anything specific to that page, why you wanted that one?
I wanted a splash page for one thing, because I think that's so much of what Simon is known for. I think his artistic style is amazing, but I think you really get to see the range of it when he's not having to do serial work. There's some people I think that are just really fantastic cover artists, and that's not disrespecting their panel work or anything like that, but like they really get that opportunity to shine. And I feel like he's definitely one of those people. So this was 1992, 93, been a while. It's one of those years at Dragon Con when I actually was able to track that down. So there was somebody that was there, and they were selling it. Memory serves me correctly, that was $125.
Wow. In 93?
In early 90s.
Yep.
That's like 10 grand right now.
Yeah. Is it? Wow, great.
No, I'm just saying like inflation and all, but
yeah.
Dragon Con is the con in Atlanta, right? Is that correct? And it's mainly known, or I guess not mainly known, but it's more known for books and fantasy and sci-fi, right? Is that correct as well?
Yeah, for sure.
So how, like, did you know going to that one that you're like, I'm going to get it here, this is what I'm going for? No, it just was there?
Yeah, it was just one of those really weird serendipitous moments, because I was actually there helping, I don't even know what they are now. But at that particular time, it was White Wolf, which was the gaming company behind the Vampire the Masquerade game. And I had a good friend who was running the live action Masquerade stuff. So I helped him write. Anybody trusting me to write is suspect anyway, right? But he's a friend. So I was helping Louis to run that stuff. And we wrote all the characters for it. And made all these different pieces that go along with the mythology to it that was created specifically for that. But that was like, as in terms of cons, that was like, we're getting off topic here, but
you're fine.
like, that was one of the coolest cons ever, because I ended up scoring this piece. Guar played.
Guar played.
Guar
in
played.
'93. This was the peak Guar.
Exactly. And then, weirdest of weird, I find myself in the hotel bar the last night of that con, sitting and having drinks with James O'Barr and Larry Elmore.
Wait, so how do you you're sitting having drinks and they walk up, or you like hold on, go back. How do you end up having drinks with them?
So I was chilling and just like in the bar hanging out, and I wasn't actually drinking. I was just like having food. I finally had caught. It was like, okay, I need to eat. I hadn't eaten all day. And O'Barr had done a signing. So I had waited in line and got these like limited edition Crow posters signed by him. Nice. And so I was like, hey, James, how's it going? Just started talking. And then Larry Elmore walks up, and I had seen, I can't even imagine what Larry Elmore prices are today, but they were $1,500 for some of these original paintings.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I'd bought that. I mean,
wow.
Yeah.
You would have been able to afford 100 of those, from 100 of those original pages, maybe. No, probably not.
Didn't quite have the cash then for that. But yeah, like these were like original Dragon magazines or illustrations that were going into the Dragonlance campaigns.
That's such a cool story, though. Like just that. So that one event, you kind of already said it. That was the best Comic-Con you'd ever been to.
Yeah, and that's why it all ties into my Grail, right? It's because it was just like this. It's not just the piece itself. It's like it's the memory and it's the experience of it. So
it's everything.
Yeah, that is what makes a Grail. Everything all wrapped into one is what makes, because the Grail is, as much as I love comic books, there is no one comic book that is just a Grail all by itself. Jesus, when you get your AF-15, he's been wanting one for a while now. When you get your AF-15, like it better have a story behind it, or it's never going to last as a Grail.
I have resigned myself to the fact that it's going to be like, do you guys know what Tough Mudder is?
Oh yeah.
It's going to be like a Tough Mudder, to get to the AF-15. I'm going to have to, go through electrified fencing and under some mud. People are going to throw tomatoes at me, and I'm just going to persevere, and I'm going to get to the end of that road, and I'm going to fork over an ungodly amount of money that I'm going to regret immediately. And I'm gonna get the book. But back to Byron's Tale, man. So with this con, and it's funny you say that too, that Guar played, because I feel like there's a lot of cons where people just show up, like, and by people I mean like artists and stuff, just show up. Like I think I mentioned to Jake, I was at a con like right before the pandemic, and Vanilla Ice just came out of nowhere and just started playing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song from the movie.
Go Ninja
like,
Go?
Yeah, it wasn't even announced or anything, and I was like, "What is going on here?" And it was crazy. So is that another reason why that con for you is just like? Have you had any other experiences like that at any other con since then?
No, and I think it's about approach, right? Because that was my first really, really big con. So I didn't go in with these preconceived notions of like, I'm going to do this, or I need to score that. I mean, I wasn't rifling through, bins of older comic books or like seeking that particular issue. And I think that freedom was part of why I had such a good time, and then to some extent, I wish people would have that same experience at cons today. It's been a really long time since I've been to one. And, I just feel like it's so agenda driven these days. It's like, oh, I gotta see this person. I gotta get that signature. When I finally can go, and one of the things that kind of keeps me out of it, and I just don't travel well these days with this autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
But when I can go, man, it's just going to be full on fun, right? I mean, like, oh my God, it was so great to interview you. And I finally get to shake your hand. And that's really, really nice. And then I'll bounce on to the next person.
Oh, yeah. Just you're going to wing it.
Exactly.
I'm going to do. Hey, Jesus and I have never actually met in person. But so we've been friends for over more than a year now, longer, almost 2 years. Almost 2 years. We met through the internet, like couples, and
couples do nowadays.
And when we do meet, we already, it's going to be at some con. It's definitely going to be. And Jesus is going to show up with an agenda. He's an agenda guy. I know he's going to do it. He's going to be like, I got to do these things. And I'm going to be like, Mr. Wing It. I'm going to show up. I'll be like, hey, Jesus, how's it going? I'm going over there now. And that's going to, it's going to be.
And then I'm going to check a box. Jake winging it. There we go. Straight on. We're still on agenda, guys. We're still on topic here. Let's keep going. Let's keep it moving.
And if that's the way you need to do it to get out of it what you want, more power to you.
Oh, no. Jake is just saying that. I don't really care, man. I just like to have fun. But I mean, that's the way to do it too, Byron. Like, when you're able to make it out and hopefully, sometime soon. I mean, you got a bunch down there in Florida too, right? Like there's like MegaCon. There's, what's the other one? There's like 2 or 3 big ones in Florida. Were you planning to go to Florida, or you planning to go outside of Florida for a convention in your mind?
We'll see. I mean, the plan is the next big one that I can try to get to would coincide with wherever I can go. Kind of the tentative plan is like a whole bunch of the Yetis just kind of converge.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself will be like a beautiful chaos. I mean, you get introduced these personalities together. We couldn't be anything but completely chaotic.
Well, it's hard enough to spot one Yeti in the world, let alone a cluster of Yetis.
Exactly.
Oh, is that what they're called? A cluster? They're not like a pride of Yetis, or what are they called?
I mean, I just said cluster. I don't know how do Yetis gather. They don't gather. That's why. Yeah, maybe it's a gaggle of Yetis. Yeah,
an ash can of Yetis, since they're comic book Yetis. I mean, what else?
We'll go with that. So you don't put me on the spot for what an actual group of Yetis is called. Because I don't know.
I love the name Comic Book Yeti, but I can't help but there's some part of me that's like, why weren't they the comic squatches? Right? Sasquatch, the comic squatch. But I don't know why. I don't know why I feel like it. But you didn't come up with the name, right, Byron?
Nope. No. We need to ask Matt the origin story, though. I've never actually done that.
Really?
No, that would be one of my first questions. Why Yeti? Like what?
Well, I'm sure it's the rhyming. So, Matt is known for his puns. So, Matt Ligeti.
Yeah.
The comic book Yeti.
He probably had the nickname Yeti before he even liked comics, too. It was probably like a school thing. And if he's like a large, pasty white guy, it was probably potentially, the Yeti, the Himalayan Yetis, they're always burly white.
They're the pasty ones.
They're all white. Yeah.
Hey, he is a hairy brother. We'll put it that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've uncovered a few mysteries here.
There we go.
All right. Well, that does lead us to our final segment of the day.
Speculation.
The speculation segment. This is where we're going to talk about a comic book or collectible or something along those lines that we think may be undervalued or maybe prone to go up in value in the future. And if you're the type of individual that likes to sell make the hobby pay for itself, this is an area where we're going to try to help you out. Jesus, you traditionally lead this one off. You ready to go?
Yeah, man. I just, to keep it in, and we're recording this in the scary month. So I don't know if this is going to come out in the scary month or not. But, that's why I talked about chillers. And I want to talk about I don't know if you talked about this before either, Jake, but Bronze Age horror from Marvel, Dead of Night. Have you talked about Dead of Night?
No, we haven't actually, but that's a good one.
So Dead of Night, and I'm looking at, honestly, the entire run. There's only 11 issues. there's two main keys, which is Dead of Night #1, obviously, because it's the first one. And then Dead of Night #11, that's the big key, which is the first appearance of Scarecrow, which had to be renamed to Strawman because there's a Scarecrow in a different company. DC has a Scarecrow, so they had to rename him. But it has Scarecrow across the top. And the reason why I'm pointing these out is because we've talked about artists and like cover artists and some iconic stuff, and some of these artists, man, you're talking about Romita on covers, John Romita Sr., 1973. You're talking about Gil Kane, 1975. Even Larry Lieber had some cover art there, pencils that he's credited for with Don Heck as well. So there's a bunch of these, and all of them have really cool, iconic premier 70s horror covers.
There's so much good horror stuff. And the thing is that the artists always, like, it's almost like if you just throw a dart in the 60s and 70s, you're going to hit, and you're throwing it at just horror series from that time. It's all iconic creators, all iconic artists, because they were doing that stuff.
Yeah. And so, outside of those two books that I talked about, they're like, 5, 10, whatever the Bronze Ages are going for. But also some of them are reprints. They reprint some 50s horror stories.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are they there for collectibles, it's cool. It's a cool run to collect, like 1 through 11. And then it's cool to read because you're reading something from the 1950s that was reprinted in the 70s. So you're reading 70-year-old stories from some of these big time creators.
Now that's still comic format though, right?
Yeah, they're all comic format.
Yeah, that's but the what they're reprinting, is that pre-code?
Yeah,
early. They were able to do that. Some of that pre-code stuff.
There's only like 4 stories, I think, that they were reprinted.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's an interesting piece of history too, right? Like they were trying to bring it back after the comics code kind of relaxed and stuff, and so they're like saying, okay, well let's bring back some of the 50 stuff that we had and put it in early 50 stuff. Because I think one of them was from like 1950, literally like 1950. So it's just an interesting, piece of history, I guess, and piece in time or time in history where they were at and what they were trying to do. And it only ran 11 issues.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely go look for those. That's great addition. And I keep forgetting, this episode is going to drop just after Halloween, but it's everybody's still in the spooky mood, so it still counts.
Yeah, Dia de los Muertos, Jake. Dia de los Muertos.
Yep.
November 1st. It's November 1st, right?
Yeah, but we roll it in for a couple of days. We like to get that eeriness in.
Of course.
All right, Byron, you're up next. What do you got?
So this is a tricky one because I'm a bit of a trade guy. So, my instinct is always when people are talking about investment, I worked in 3 different comic book shops. Granted, it's been a long time, but I don't think you can beat Silver Age stuff in terms of investment potential. And this is not a news flash. I'm not dropping some super secret here, right? But, if you're out there and you have those precious dollars to invest in stuff and there's 50 covers of Venom versus buying something that is very, very hard to find in Silver Age, I know where I'm going to put my money in terms of investment.
Yeah.
I agree. One of the things, one of the other things I've been telling people is, look for the press. We've been in this shortage, situation for a while, and Image not reprinting stuff. That's a pretty big deal. It's kind of a golden little period there where we're dealing with this, so that press runs think about the Killcella. If somebody could actually get their hands on
one of the original. I said that exact same thing to Jesus. You are not wrong.
Yeah, I know who has them. He's a friend of the show. Mario went to New York Comic Con with a handful of them, and I think he was handing them out. So whoever got those at New York Comic Con, those are.
He got some of the original. Yeah, those are the original print runs. I wonder if they're going to indicate that's the fact that it is technically a second printing.
I don't know. That's true. I hadn't thought of that. Is it a second printing? I mean, is that how that works? Does it have to be circulated to be considered a first printing if it's still in the warehouse and it goes up in flames?
We don't get to make those rules. That's the collectors really get to do that. I'm telling you right now, if you gave me the choice between one that was printed in that first run versus the reprinting to compensate for the destroyed books, I'd want one of the first ones. I mean, that happened with Kanto, right? Kanto, yeah. Didn't that series get destroyed too?
The other one, Byron, that was around that time is what was it, The Last Ronin, right? The Last Ronin that we've talked about.
Yep. Yeah, the very first book, and not all of the variants.
Because it has like 50 variants or something, but the number 1A cover was limited and didn't have reprints, right? Or something, or it did have reprints.
Yeah, no. They did second and third and fourth, but the very first A cover, they didn't print enough of those because there were so many variants, which is interesting. So there's a lot of them, but I think there's almost fewer of cover A than there are if you combine all the variants that were all out. Yeah. And anyway, I think you're right though, Byron. Look at the numbers. Find the print numbers, because that's certainly going to give you an indication of what the rarity is.
Yeah. I mean, my own personal little recent gem, and I highly recommend if people are fans of the book, go check it out, is By the Horns. And Marcusson, the writer, on his website, there's a limited cardstock cover that they printed in conjunction with a vinyl. So there was a soundtrack that the name escapes me, but it's like a ambient doom metal band that he's friends with. And they pressed a limited edition piece of vinyl that has, By the Horns stuff on it. And you get that. It's the only way to get that comic book. So.
That's collectible right there. That's awesome.
And Marcusson will even sign it for you if you ask him to. So
that's really cool. What's his website?
It's just his name, Marcusson Naso.
Nice. Yeah. Well, everybody go check that out. That sounds pretty sweet. I might go find that myself. All right. Well, thank you for that, Byron. I am going to close speculation out with a cautionary tale. Jesus, you always love when I do these.
Yes, I love it.
So it is also sort of quasi in the spirit of the horror season. And I am talking about, I saw a book at my LCS. I said to myself, that's an interesting book. It seems a little high priced. Why is it so expensive? But I didn't bother looking it up. And I saw it in the case and it's like, oh, I'll look that up later. I went home. I looked it up. I was like, wait, I probably should have bought that. And then I went back in and it was gone. And the book I am talking about is a rare book, a scarce book, we might say on this show, Resident Evil #1.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a book that it showed up at my LCS, and I did ask the owner about it. I talk to this guy every time I go in, and I asked him, I was just like, where did that come from? Because, when books change in the case, usually it's because he got a collection. And most of the time I'm curious about what all came in it. But in this case, yeah, he was just like, oh, yeah, I came in with some books. Somebody had a bunch of books from the 90s, came in. Most of it was crap. That one's in pretty good shape. It was... So this is really super low print run. I don't know. I want to say, so it was a free giveaway by Capcom. So Marvel printed it, 1996. The cover, the artwork this is a name I butcher every time. Bill Sienkiewicz. Did I say it right?
Sienkiewicz. Yeah.
Sienkiewicz. There it is. I think that's it. Yeah, I butcher it every time. It doesn't matter. That's what I do. But it's got a really sweet cover, limited print run. They gave it away for free. And then it included, so I don't know if the one that the store actually had this, but included an unattached $5 coupon for the game that you could use. But I had no idea what that gem was. And I walked by it. Yeah, it was, he had it for $100. And the thing was, I looked at it, I was like, $100. That's a really good price on that book. That's actually a really good price on that book.
Well, not only that, man, but it's really hard to find, dude.
Yeah, but the thing is I like the cover. If you see the cover screams buy me, and I immediately was like, damn it, I should have bought the book. but it caught me at my eye out of the case. I didn't buy it, but I noticed that it had the number 1 and the free and the Capcom, and I was just like, oh man, that looks pretty sweet. It is a ghost of a book. I don't know what the print run is. It's super low apparently, and just super hard to find. I'm guessing they printed less than 10,000, maybe less than 5.
But try to find it.
You trying to find the number? I have yet to be able to find the print run on it, but with regards to Resident Evil Magazine number 1, Resident Evil Magazine number 2, these all were big books that dropped in the 90s a couple years later, and those are good books to go find as well, as far as value goes. And the covers are great. Jim Lee did the cover for Resident Evil Magazine number 1, and I can't believe I passed up on it. So it's a cautionary tale. And the cautionary is if something catches your eye and you're like, I need to, like, if you got a phone in your pocket, do the research before you get home, because if you wait till you get home, it's going to be sold. Maybe.
So just buy everything you see.
No, that is not what I'm saying, Jesus. I'm just saying in this particular case, I instantly regretted it. I mean, I didn't like call them after I looked it up. Like I looked it up and I was like, oh, but this LCS stuff sticks around for a little bit. So I didn't think it was going anywhere. I went in the next week on my Wednesday for my poll list and it was gone. So that's how it goes, I guess. Cautionary tale. But Resident Evil number 1, man, keep your eye out for that. You will notice the cover if you don't know what it is. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. That's a good one and a good cautionary tale.
Exactly. If nothing else, please heed caution. My lack of knowledge. Don't let my lack of knowledge be the reason you guys fail in the real world.
Heed it. All right.
But that's going to do it for this episode of Spec Tales. Byron, this was an absolute pleasure. We really enjoyed talking to you and talking about you and how you got to the Yeti. Would you mind telling our listeners where they can find you out in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Predominantly on Twitter at Byron M. O'Neal. I'm also on Instagram doing what we all do, right? You try to build it up. I'm on TikTok, but God, I'm too old.
We haven't even made it to TikTok yet. No.
Yeah, we're not even. Yeah, no.
So good for you.
I try to dip my toe in that, and I'm just like, yeah. Anyway.
And then you do the podcast where they can find that on every podcast anywhere they find it.
We are everywhere. If you have a format you like, stick with your format, and we should be there. Cryptid Creator Corner. You can search for that. You can search for Comic Book Yeti, and we'll pop up that way too.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely everybody go check out Byron's stuff. Byron, we really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been awesome to get a chance to chat with you guys. Really cool.
Thank you. And for everybody out there listening, thank you so much for joining us. Please come back again next week where we will, we'll do it all over again. Have a good week. If you don't mind, can I ask your opinion on Ice Cream Man? We talk about that on our show often. And we have previously spoke to Martin Marazzo, the artist of Ice Cream Man. And it's a weird because every issue is standalone.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends. What is the concept of, from its inception? And as long as I know that and I bought into it going in, it's cool. I got a little caught off guard. I'll give you an example. The silver coin. So I was seeing everybody like, this is so good. This is amazing. And I thought, well, it wasn't what I thought it was when I got the trade, right? Which is not to say it was bad. It was just unexpected. So there's an example of, my buy-in and being like, okay, it's cool, but this is not exactly what I thought I was getting on board for.